and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar, I'm your host as always, but this is a slightly different show this week because if you're a regular listener, you'll know that what we do is look over the Rangers game from the weekend. But there wasn't one due to Scottish Cup early exit syndrome, unfortunately. So we didn't want to leave you without anything to listen to this Monday evening, and we asked our community on Patreon, where we have a subscription service, for their questions. If you're not on Patreon following us, well, why not? You would absolutely love it, particularly, believe it or not, the weekends where there's no Rangers to fill up your time with. And if you're thinking, well, it's just Rangers content, I don't know if I could listen to it every single day, I think you'd be surprised by the volume and the depth of the quality over there. So if you listen on a commute, if you listen in the gym to podcasts, if you listen to them at work, for example, and you've got a lot of time to fill up, then why not give us a try? It's just $1.99 per month, and for that you will get tons of great content, including not just Rangers related content, historical, quizzes, current events, daily news shows, etc., but loads of non-Rangers football related stuff, including regular shows on the top leagues in Europe, but also a whole range of non-football related products, including gaming podcasts, including recently we started a music podcast, we've also got pop culture podcast. There's tons. Think of it like a big staunch Netflix for your ears, and give us a try. Just $1.99 per month. If you don't like it, cost you £2. If you do like it, join the community and you'll have a very good time. But as I say, we asked for questions and the guys over there delivered in their drove, so I'll just crack on with it. First question comes from Derek Johnston. He says, if Lafferty was moved on in the summer, would you take Peter Crouch for a season for the target man striker role? No, I wouldn't, because one, I think these past their best, and that's not derogatory, it's just a fact. Clearly they're past their best, but I think these past their best big names, they rarely work for us. And also on top of that, we have Jermaine Defoe, who I do think will be an exception and prove to score a lot of goals for us. But that would then be two strikers in their late 30s. Not for me. I'd rather have the one experienced striker. I think it's a great idea, and I think you can do that. But I'd be looking at a different age group in the summer, in all honesty. And I suppose, being a Rangers fan, I've just been burnt too often with these guys that arrive, and maybe it's our expectations are wrong because we hear the name and we think back to what they were, and then they arrive and unfortunately they just can't produce it. But I think it was best described by a friend, one of the podders, Adam, who described Nico Kranjčar memorably last season as the ghost of Nico Kranjčar, and I think that can happen too often with those type of players. Andrew Anderson asks, how well do you rate Gerrard's season this year, and what does he need to do next year to keep the job next season? Well, he has to win something. I think that's very clear. And I think that we would expect to be closer to Celtic in the run-in than we have managed this season. I'd rate him between a 6 and a 7 this season. I think he made a lot of errors, and I don't think there's any point pretending he didn't. But I think he has the ability to learn from them. And I think he did deliver certain important milestones for us. The European campaign was wonderful, and it was great to see Rangers back competing at a level we would expect to find our club, and also monkey off the back of the Old Firm victory. I think that was very important psychologically for us. The disappointments have been what looks like failure to learn how to cope with certain defensive strategies that clubs come up with to players. I think we have struggled at times in terms of creativity. I think he's been a little dogmatic at times in terms of his system. And then recently we've seen him be a wee bit more flexible, and we've got the results from that. So when he sits down in the summer, because I've spoken about this before, when we say things like he's a manager who makes mistakes and he'll learn, I think there's almost a belief that what we mean by learn is it didn't work on Saturday, I'll fix it next week. And I don't think football works like that. I think it's more an evolutionary process. And I think we've seen that over the season. And I think hopefully once he gets a chance to sit down and reflect properly in the summer, we'll see it again. But I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that he needs to win something next season to continue to keep the support of the fans. But you never know, the circumstances could be slightly different. It just depends on how the season goes, the type of football we play, the results that we get. But when you look at the silly points this season we've dropped, and it does feel like that, that's no disrespect meant to anybody, but there are points Rangers should have had this season. And there's been very few games where you've thought, we were lucky there. Rangers have had to generally play well to win matches, and when we've dropped to average, then we've usually drawn. And in fact, some matches we've played really well and not won. I can think of the two Hibs matches, for example. So that's what I think moving forward he needs to address, and if he does, then there's a lot of opportunity in Scottish football for him, and he could end up with a lot of silverware, and that is the plan, I'm sure. Simon 1872 says, Greg Stewart on paper is yet another mediocre squad filler. What do the guys think he will bring? What must be the key for the club's recruitment? The key for the recruitment in the summer for me is simple. We need quality. I've nothing against bringing in guys who will be able backups or options for certain matches, which is what you would imagine Greg Stewart would be, but we need 4 or 5 genuine quality first teamers, guys who arrive as first teamers that you look at and you say, oof, right, here we go, this is serious, and can make an immediate impact. So as a squad, you've still got to fill it, you've still got to bring in players, because we'll move players along in the summer. There's obviously the loan players, etc. So it's important as a club that we don't forget that we do still have to look at short term, medium term, long term, and you can't concentrate too much on one or the other. You've got to try and balance it. But what we need are several quality players to come in. I don't think we need 10, 12 signings in the summer, but I do think we need a minimum 3 or 4 really good signings. 4 is the number that keeps coming to my head when I think about it. So that's what I would go for. Scott McIntosh, is Craig Thompson a cheat as opposed to being a really pish referee? I would say he's a really pish referee due to the fact that I think if I said he was a cheat, then that would open me up to legal proceedings. So for that reason, we'll go with the other one. Robert Kelly, is there any SPL or are there any SPL players that we could sign that would be good enough for the first team? Yeah, there's bound to be. The problem is it's not always about talent. When you sign for Rangers, it's about the ability to understand that it's a different game, and what worked for you at your parent club isn't necessarily going to work exactly that way at Rangers, because teams will play harder against us, teams will sit in a lot more against us. It's a different ball game, and the pressure is exceptional, and that is something else. There's a difference between playing pretty much most weeks at, say, St Johnstone in front of 3,000 people to go to Ibrox, 50,000 people, 50,000 very demanding people who will be on your back when things aren't going well. You need a mental strength to try and overcome that. So that for me is the key thing. But there are undoubtedly players. The idea that there isn't a player in Scottish football that could come in and succeed at Rangers, I think is facile. I don't believe that for a second. That's a good one. William Auld, top 5 worst loan signings you've seen play live. Good God, and isn't it telling that he could ask for 5 and I could do it. I think that says a lot about some of Rangers' forays into the loan market over the years. Right, okay, top 5. Well, Jerome Rothen was awful. I mean, just couldn't believe it. Because the last we'd seen this guy, he was playing really well for a Monaco side that got to the Champions League final, and then, 4 years later, he pitches up at Ibrox and he couldn't run. He was god awful. Going back in the sands of time, Thomas Myra, the Norwegian goalkeeper, we got on loan in Dick Advocaat's time, and I thought he was bloody awful. Go back and watch him. He was a terrible, terrible goalkeeper, certainly in his time at Rangers. Apologies if he's a Norwegian legend and I'm just not sure of it, but he'd have to go into that category. Franny Jeffers would be in there because he was a weird one. He arrived on loan and you thought, okay, this will be interesting, but it wasn't that he played badly, he just never seemed to touch the ball. I have no recollections of Franny Jeffers doing anything in a Rangers shirt. Just a terrible player. In that same tranche, that same class, Olivier Bernard, who was, again, you thought, he was quite good at Newcastle. Don't know whether or not he'd given up football due to some sort of religious thing. He'd maybe joined a cult or whatever that frowned on it, but he was absolutely atrocious. And that leaves me one other. You could pick any 4 of the 5 from Newcastle. So for number 5, I'll pick all 4 of the Newcastle loanees during the lower league years. That wasn't fun at all. Stephen Harvey, what are your expectations for the last 5 games compared to how you think the results will go, considering we've struggled to beat most of the teams we're facing with the exception of Hearts? I'm always an optimist. I would expect us to win these matches because I think we're better than these sides. For example, Hibs, I think, are bloody lucky to have walked away with 3 points from us this season. So no, I am fully expecting Rangers to win these matches. I think that in the last few games we've shown an understanding that we need to do different things when we're coming up against these teams finally. And you can argue legitimately, why did it take so long? But I think that we have seen that. And yeah, it's maybe just me, but I'm looking for 15 points here. Brian McDougall, if you could make a goal line clearance to prevent any goal scored against us in our history, which would it be? Frank Sauze's Marseille Rangers in the Velodrome in 1993. I would have it would have been a hell of a block, right enough, but I'd have got back on the line, and any part of my anatomy, be it, well, not my arms, because that would have led to trouble, but I'd have been willing to put up face, backside, knackers, you name it, to keep that one out of the net. So that one for me. Callum McCulloch, do you think we may regret letting Liam Kelly go, perhaps, or think we might sign him back? If I'm correct, Robbie McCrory is only a year younger than him, and Kelly has been the best keeper in Scotland this season by some distance and has the most clean sheets, although I know there is a difference between a goalie making a save every 2 minutes and one making a save every 25 minutes. I think Liam Kelly's become a better player for his time away because of exactly what you said. He's playing week in, week out, he's playing regularly, he's getting experience he just wouldn't have got at Ibrox. You certainly could see him back in the future, yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's an unbelievable proposition moving forward in the future. And I don't actually think that the club would regret letting him go unless his value soars to something crazy, which I don't think it will. I think that a lot of big clubs do this, and then they buy players back, and we sometimes go, oh, you had him. But part of it is, yeah, but we had to let him go out. And not only experience first team football, but experience, if you like, being out of the comfort blanket, especially young players that have developed at a really big club. I think Glenn Kamara is a good example of that. Glenn Kamara grows up at Arsenal, and I'm not suggesting Arsenal are going to sign Glenn Kamara, by the way, before anyone jumps on me, but he grows up at Arsenal in this wonderful world where everything's done for you, and you know, you're in these wonderful facilities, everything's brilliant, and then suddenly you're taken away from that and you've got an uncertain future. And he went off to Dundee. Talk about culture shock. Dundee and London, slightly different places if you've been to both. And I'm actually laughing at that. I just the thought of a group of Dundonians walking around London and going, wow, look, a house with wheels. It's like, no, mate, that's a bus. But he then sees the other side of the coin, and I think it makes you more rounded, more grateful for what you've got. And I think that you can see that with a player. So, yeah, well, I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see him back then. Craig, we are closer to Celtic in the games we played them this year, and we are comfortably in second place. Yeah, I feel this season is actually quite a disappointment, probably stemming from cup defeats to Aberdeen and some really poor league results. What's your overall feeling about how we've done this year, and what should be our minimum targets next year? I think we've touched on that. Craig goes on to say, I really think we need to be in both cup finals, winning one and challenging for the league in the very last game. I mean, that's a high expectation. And again, I'm sure there are people hearing me say that, oh, but we're Rangers. Unfortunately, saying the word, but we're Rangers, doesn't eradicate the last 8 years. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. I wish it did. Otherwise, if it did, this podcast would be 45 minutes of me saying, but we're Rangers. And the question is, are we better than we were last season? Yes, we are. And anyone who says that we aren't, I think, is maybe looking to push an idea that they've already made their mind up on. I get a little bit frustrated by it. I think it's a bit childish at times when people do the whole stamp their feet and say we should be better. Yeah, I wish we were, but we're not currently. Are we getting there? Yeah, I think we're on the right road. Are we getting there as quickly as I want to? No, we're not. But again, when you see people say we need to sack the manager and bring someone else in, you're like, yeah, it's not going to work. We can't continually do this. You've got to give somebody time to build something. And I think that he's shown enough to suggest that he might be the guy. And he might not be, in which case we'll start something else. I think it was Franklin Roosevelt that said, try something. If it works, great. If it doesn't, acknowledge it and move on without recrimination. The important thing is to try. And that's kind of where I am with it at the moment. I do think he needs to win something. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But for me, I think when you set these targets at the start of a season, it's always going to be for us win the title. And no matter what we say, and we talked about it in the summer about, we're looking for progress. We're Rangers fans. No, we're not. We talk out both sides of our mouth. We say that. What we mean is, when is the bloody league? We're sick of this. And I think that that's really where it is. So, yeah, we definitely do need to be challenging more this season. I don't think this season was a disappointment, except in the sense that it's always a disappointment if we don't win the league. And that, with that caveat, yes, every season we don't win the league is a disappointment. But I think that for me, maybe it's just glass half full versus glass half empty, but I think there were enough signs and enough high points to suggest that, yeah, okay, we're onto something here if we stick with it. For me, it's too easy to just turn around every 3 months when things aren't going perfectly and going, right, get rid of him. And I'm not particularly into that. Colin Gregg, a lot of the current transfer rumours seem to be players that most fans consider squad players. I think we should look for maybe 1 or 2 marquee signings. Obviously, the Gascoigne, Newman, Van Bronckhorst days are gone, but we need the type of players who can really make the difference. Well, yeah, we do, absolutely. But the problem is that everybody wants those type of players, and a lot of everybody has more money than we do. And the idea of going out and getting top quality players, to put it in context, Newcastle break the transfer record this season, signing a guy for 20 million from the MLS, and the rest of the English people were laughing at them, saying, wow, 20 million, that's really going to turn around your season. That's where we are now, you know, and I think we sometimes see, when we buy a player for 2 million, because 2 million to us is a fortune, we go, right, deliver, and the guy turns up and it turns out he's average or he's okay. Well, yeah, because that's what 2 million buys you now, and if he was better than that, A, would have cost more, and B, wouldn't be in Scotland. So I know nobody likes to hear this, but that's kind of the reality, that you've got to try and find hidden diamonds, and the problem is when you're doing that, you have to go through a lot of rough to find the diamond, and when you do, they're generally uncut, and you need to work on them. But yeah, I think that what you need to do is target the very best you can get at the very highest end of your budget. So by that saying, look, what is the most we can afford to spend? Let's push it, not put the club in jeopardy, obviously, ever again, and not spend what we don't have. But rather than saying, you know, we've got 12 and we'll invest 10 and keep 2 for a rainy day, I think you've got to go for 12. And rather than saying, we'll bring in 7 players, I'd rather that at, you know, 2 million each sale, I'm just using that as a, or you could bring in 3 at 5 million, then I'd go with the latter course. That's what I would do. Ross Monroe, David, when did you get the first idea to start Heart and Hand, and did you ever think it would be as successful as it is? I first got the idea to start Heart and Hand in 2010, and that's then what I did. The reason is I've spoken about this before. There were football podcasts, club podcasts I liked, even though I wasn't a fan of the club, just because they were funny and interesting and real. And I thought that'd be good if somebody did that for Rangers. And I was speaking to a friend about it, and he said, well, you do it. And I was like, nah, I don't know anything about it. And he said, you do it, go on. And we did it, and here we are, all these years later. It's never stopped since then. I never thought it would get to this level, no. How could you? You know, at the time there wasn't really any. I mean, the podcast market now is massively saturated. It wasn't then, because we're coming up for nearly a decade when you think on it. And you know, there was no such thing as Patreon and things like that. So no, the idea that we would ever be in a position to, as I say, become, you know, Staunch Netflix was beyond my dreams. And even when we launched the Patreon service, I didn't think we'd get anywhere near the amount of subscribers we got, or the amount of contributors, or the fact that we're able to put out 5 shows every single day. You know, I was thinking maybe be 1 or 2, but now it's become, as people say to me, it's like a way of life for people. And I think that what's always remained important to me is, because, you know, coming from a background of the trust and fans groups, is that it feels like a big gang. And I think that's what Heart and Hand does. And when we're at our best, that's what it does. You are a part of it. I am a part of it. The other podders are a part of it. That's the whole thing. I think if you've been at one of our live shows, you really feel that. Everybody gets on and everybody feels, you know, part of the same thing, and I think there's something special in that. So hopefully this is just the tip of the iceberg. Alan Fowler, what do you think about Steven Gerrard bringing in a fresh voice at training? I know Eck brought in Walter to give a team talk recently, and it seemed to work for Livingston when they brought in Hartson to coach the strikers. Would you be happy to see the likes of Goff and Haitley being brought in temporarily to coach the defence and strikers respectively? I've always thought we should utilise past legends to pass on their knowledge and show them what it means to play for us. I'm certainly not against bringing in these guys to talk to the players, maybe work a training session or 2 with them. Yeah, I think that's always a good idea. You know, as long as you're not doing it every day, but I think every so often there's a wee boost for players. I think it's a cracking idea, yeah, and especially telling them what it means. And I think it helps in any walk of life if you've got somebody who said, look, I know what it is you're going through or what you're expected to do. And this is how I achieved it. Anything's easier with a guidebook that somebody who's been there before and done it has written. I don't think the idea of bringing in a coach permanently just because he used to play for us is the best idea. You don't know how he's going to work with other coaches, etc. You don't know what his views in the game are. But bringing in one-off guy every so often, or Richard Goff going to training every time he's over from the States is brilliant. I think Niko Katic was out for dinner with Richard Goff lately, and I mean, you've got to imagine that's something the club set up. So, yeah, I think it's a very good idea. I'd like to point out for anyone who might think that I have just disgraced myself with a bottom burp, that was actually my dog and producer of the show, Maya, groaning. So, yeah, I'm not taking the blame for it, frankly. Stephen Barber, rumour has it that we're in for a new defender in the summer. You guys' opinion on what sort of defender do we need? Is it a sort of ball-playing defender like Joe Worrell, or a more commanding, built like a brick shithouse defender like Butcher, or dare I say it, maybe Scott McKenna? Do you think McKenna could marshal a defence? If not McKenna, who? Well, first of all, Stephen, there's no chance of McKenna because of the money that he would go for. While I don't think that Aberdeen will get their 10 million for him, they'll definitely go over 5 and probably nearer 8 for him. And Rangers can't really pay that for anyone, and certainly shouldn't be paying it for Scott McKenna. I really hope Celtic do. Nothing against Scott McKenna, he's a perfectly decent Scottish centre-half, but he's no more than that. And I think, like most non-Aberdeen or media people in Scotland, because this isn't just a Rangers thing, then we're all kind of looking at it and going, okay, 10 million. Right. So that can't happen. Alex Sousa at Hearts, Rangers have been linked with him. I think he's a really good player for the money. The one thing he lacks is a wee bit of pace. That I think if he did have the pace, I think he would be playing in England. But he's a good player, and I could see him and Goldson forming an effective partnership. But yeah, we'll definitely need centre-backs this summer. Worrell will go back to Nottingham Forest, and you'll also see, I think, Macaulay go. So we'll need 2 centre-backs. Ian A, if you were to pick a spine of a team to build around from a history, who would your 4 players be? I.e. goalkeeper, centre-half, centre-mid, striker. For me, Gorham, Goff, Gaza, McCoist. First 2, agree. Gorham and Goff, absolutely. But then for spine, for me, I think suggests to me that you go for the stronger players in there and your skillful players playing off or with them. So while Gaza and McCoist would both be in my team, the midfield spine guy would be Graham Souness, and the striker would be Mark Hateley. And Gorham, Goff, Souness, Hateley, I'd take that as a 5s team even if the other had 5, because we'd still win. Ross, there are a few players fighting for the future. Should we play them to see if they stay or go? What's your thoughts as we stand? Main ones I have in mind are Lafferty, Grejda, Davis, Macaulay. Can he kick on this season, or Grejda in particular, can he kick on this season, or is he done? He's behind Kent, Candace, Middleton, then you add Jones arriving, Murphy coming back, and we're also being linked recently with Jake Hastie. Seems he's very far down the pecking order. Yeah, I think Grejda will go. I think he'll go in the summer if there's any interest in him, or possibly even out on loan. Wouldn't be surprised, incidentally, if he went back to Osijek on loan. So I think you'll probably see him go. Of the other ones, Macaulay, no, I think he's done, unfortunately. But this season he's just looked well off the pace. And maybe at that age you need to play every week, because if you're not playing regularly, you can lose that bit of sharpness quicker than you maybe do when you're younger. So I think he'll be on his way. Lafferty, I think, will probably go. Just hasn't worked at all for him, really, and I'd be surprised if he was retained, and if he is retained he's going to be very much the cover guy, so I think he'll go. Davis will stay, I'm pretty sure of that now. I think it was touch and go for a bit, but I think he's had an upturn and then both form and training and whatnot. I'm not 100% on it, and in January I was when he arrived, but I suspect he'll still stay next season. As for playing them in the last few games, no, you pick the best team. Let's win these games. That's more important. So, no, pick the best teams in the last few matches. It's the summer and we can sign Ryan Kent for $3 million, but only if we sell Liverpool Alfredo Morelos for $10 million. Would you do the deal or not? Yes, I would do that deal in the summer. So that would be... but apparently Kent value round about the 12 million mark. But if they could be talked into doing that deal, then yes, I would take that deal. John McLean, fresh from Nakatomi Tyrrell, says, what can we do to get games refereed properly? Short of rubbing a magic lamp and hoping a big guy comes out offering wishes, John, I'm not entirely sure. He mentions the Aberdeen Cup game versus Celtic. Remember May's challenge on Jack that went unpunished was very similar to Ball on Christie, the Celtic penalty too. There's a joke in the same game, if that's us it's a yellow for the attacker. I think we need to be more vocal on it and illustrate these examples to stimulate the debate. I think the debate is ongoing now about referees in general, and I think that the referees have kind of brought it on themselves this season with some horrendous officiating. And look, I do go with the whole it's a tough job thing, and admittedly it's a tough job, but nobody makes them do it, so that kind of goes out the window slightly when that happens. It's sort of like, once you decide you want to be a ref, and they're well paid for it, let's not forget this. We sometimes go on, or the media sometimes go on as if referees are voluntary, like the St John's Ambulance. They're not. They get paid, and quite a lot. So yeah, we need better referees. We need referees to take responsibility, and they don't. And what we really need to do is to highlight the inconsistencies. But the problem we have in Scotland is the deeply unreceptive and hostile media. That if Club A come out and say, well, look at this officiating, people say, oh, you're absolutely right, that's terrible. If we come out and say, oh, shut up. And that's the problem, because it's easy for referees to give bad decisions against us currently. So that fits into a longer term thing about changing the media narrative, etc. But I think the SFA, because their tendency is to just blindly back the referees in the story, and say, oh, well, it was a mistake on their part, as if that excuses it. Well, at least they weren't cheating. It was just a mistake. It doesn't excuse it. Stop making so many mistakes. Stop making so many big mistakes. You accept there'll be the odd one, but it's every game. And the only thing, it's not just Rangers fans who feel this way because they are bad referees. The most, I think, ridiculous and simplistic defence that you get of referees, and you do get this from the SFA and you do get it from the media, is, well, if all the clubs don't like them, then that shows they're doing something right because there's no bias. No, it means that they're terrible at their job. How difficult is this to... They're sending somebody for me, lads. If I'm not here in 5 minutes, you'll know what's happened. So yeah, I agree that we need referees to be better. Here's something we could do with, though, and that's football managers being a little bit less partial, which is when you do your dinger about a decision and then you get one for you the following week, you've got to kind of admit to it. And I think that's partly the thing about the club on the other half of the city, who I don't particularly want to associate with given the sordid past and what's going to happen to them in the near future. But they would have you believe they've never had a decision, whereas we can point the last 6 games and we pick it. And I think that people have got to be honest and say, and we tried to be on here, and if you're a listener you'll know that that wasn't a penalty, we got away with one there. And I think that we need managers to be a wee bit more open. And by that, I don't expect them to turn out and lambast the referee for giving them a decision, but just remember it the next time they get one for them, or get one against them, is where you weren't complaining then. And I think that would help it. And finally, we could do with a compliance officer to go away. just go away. It's no good. It doesn't help. Everyone hates it. And I can't think of something in any other business sphere where the employees hate it and the customers hate it and a company retains it to no benefit. I don't understand that, but it's the SFA, I suppose. Ross, Mikhailichenko or Hustra, who did you prefer? Miko, I preferred. He was a lazy bastard. And in fact, he was such a lazy bastard that he was almost heroically lazy. He was admirably lazy. I remember my dad saying to me one time that he suspected that in one of his early games at Ibrox, Miko had lost a £1 coin round about the halfway line because he spent the rest of his Ibrox career looking for it. And that kind of summed him up. And I remember one time when we only had 2 subs, it was St Johnstone away and it was Miko and Durant, and they got sent to warm up, and Durant started doing sprints up and down the touchline. Miko stood up, stretched, yawned and waited to come on. So I kind of admire that. He was a tremendous player. Didn't do enough for us, unfortunately, but he was a great player. Hustra was a good player, but I think maybe he's over fondly remembered in the sands of time. A lot of time he was in and out of the side. He was decent, Everything's relative. If we had him now, we'd all be walking about with Hustra on the back of our jerseys and Hustra tattoos. But back then, I thought he was only decent. So for me, it was Miko, who genuinely did have world-class talent when he chose to use it. The problem was, not that often. Ian Mitchell, if McLeish had managed second place in 2005-06, do you think Paul Le Guen would have been back more substantially, as we would have had potentially money from Champions League coming in had we negotiated our way through the qualifiers? He would have, but only if he'd got through. So yeah, he wouldn't have been given it on the off chance. No, he would have been given it had we got through. And I think that's the same for any manager. That the budget goes up if you achieve beyond the financial targets. By that stage, though, Murray was well into the needing Champions League money for the wage bill era, and we know how that led to. So I don't think it would have been huge. He wouldn't have went, well, that was 10 million we hadn't budgeted for. It was budgeted for. So yes, I think it would have been better and different. I still don't think it would have worked it, because Le Guen, when he arrived, just instantly thought, I made a mistake here. I shouldn't do it. I don't belong here. And we've all done it. We've all taken a job and thought, this sounds great, gone in, a few weeks in, went, nah, not for me, made the wrong call. And it's not reflective on the institution, it's not reflective particularly on you, it's just not the right fit. And I think he'd already made his mind up that was the case. And if you want to hear a lot more on this, we have a show on our network called Murray and Me, in which I go into a lot of details. Martin Ramsey quizzes me on all my dealings with Murray, and we do a lot on that summer of 2006 and what was promised, what was delivered, and what went on in the background of the Le Guen era. So that's maybe something for you new subscribers to go and have a listen to. Speaking of that, actually, I'm going to take a wee break and ask you to do something that we've never asked you to do before. And I'll explain why. Every time this time of year, all your favourite podcasts start asking you to vote for them in the British Podcast Awards, and we've never done that because we don't need it. It's obviously nice to win something, but we've never wanted to sort of beg for your votes, and we just thought, let people do it. But this year we will make an exception and beg for your votes, because there's been such a grassroots thing that people have just started doing this, and to be honest, we're so flattered that we thought, well, listeners are actually going out their way to try and drum up support for this, and it seems a bit much that they are, whereas we won't lift our hand to do it. So if you like Heart and Hand, and we would hope you've got this far into this kind of pod, we would think you would, then please go and vote for us. It's www.britishpodcastawards.com. It's easy enough. BritishPodcastAwards.com. Click on vote and enter in Heart and Hand, and up will pop. Just choose us and vote for us. And like I say, it's there's no financial reward or anything for it. You get a night out in London, I believe, which I wouldn't go to. So you'll be sending two of the other podders down to pick up the award on our behalf. But yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to be able to taunt people with it. You know, that would be good. We'd love to do that. We'd love to go up to like Celtic podcasts and wave it in their face and go, yeah. So, yeah, there you go. If you wouldn't mind, BritishPodcastAwards.com. And if you can't be arsed, then I totally understand that as well. That's kind of where I would be. David, with the stadium being packed to the rafters every week and season tickets an all-time high, if we could extend the stadium, which stand would you look at? The corners looking like that isn't an option. Where could we add to increase the capacity to cope with the demand? That's a real tough one, David. I'm not sure you wouldn't have to knock down existing stands and rebuild. Obviously, the main stand untouchable, but the other three, you'd maybe need to look at doing that and rebuild if you wanted to extend the capacity. I suppose you could take the screens out and do something in the corner. I don't know. The cost is huge, the initial start-up cost, so I don't see it happening for a while, unfortunately. But long-term, who knows? But right now, I don't see that being something that... Because you are talking tens of millions, even for it. And yes, it'll pay itself back in a number of years, we know that, but the initial startup cost is big. Colin Kerr, what's the longest you've sat in a coach travelling to watch Rangers? I went to Belgrade in 1990. Oof, I'll send you in a daily tale about that trip sometime. I look forward to that, Colin. Get it typed, get it in. But for me, it was Dortmund in 95. And it wasn't even from Glasgow or Kilwinning. It was from Stirling, where I was living at the time at university. And I travelled through to watch Rangers from there. Stuart Shields, strikers for next season. With Alfie probably leaving, where does that leave Lafferty, Rudden and Hardy? I would expect Hardy to be kept as an option. He's done well at Livy, so deserves a chance. Rudden to be loaned out to Premier League team. Maybe Livy to replace Hardy. And Lafferty could go either way. I think you've answered your own question, Stuart, absolutely brilliantly. And I think your plan is spot on, in all honesty. So yeah, I think you might be right there. Andrew Hills. or Hillis, sorry. Do you believe the board is ambitious enough with regards to A, developing the stadium, i.e. safe standing, filling in the TV corners, upgrading the food and drink facilities, and B, improving the matchday experience, i.e. fan zone, pre and half-time entertainment is pretty poor? I fully appreciate all these take money, but we need to draw on our business partners better to help drive more action. I do. I believe they're very ambitious, and I believe they're taking care of stuff that they don't necessarily need to, and that other boards haven't given a toss about. And even things like a fan zone, for example, previous boards didn't care about stuff like that. And doing upgrades to the stadium and whatnot. The problem is with Rangers is that everything was broken. Everything needed attention, everything needed fixed, from staffing to pitches to the Hull training centre to equipment in offices to the stands to the toilets. You name it, it needed doing. And the problem is they've got an enormous to-do list. When they don't get to stuff that is maybe priority for a certain fan as opposed to another fan, then they're going to get criticism for it. Ambition doesn't always equal ability to deliver, incidentally. David Murray was ambitious. Peter Ridsdale was ambitious. You've got to be ambitious, but within a framework of what is realistic and achievable. You've got to push yourself, of course. You've got to continually push yourself. But that's a key point. And also that sometimes when you want to go and fix it, doesn't mean that you do it properly. And that can happen as well. I think we as fans say, this needs done, and the club say, we're going to go and do this, and we assume that means it's going to get done. Sometimes they go to do it and balls up. So that can happen as well, that things they try don't work, and see my earlier comments about always continuing to try. So I do think the board, they care about stuff that other boards don't. Whether they're doing everything right is always open to question. I mean, I think this board's heart is very much in the right place, but that doesn't always mean they make good decisions, and that's where we as fans need to criticise. I will very rarely attack the board's motives, and that's new for me, because the last 10 years that's not been the case at all. But their motives are usually bang on. But as a fan and as a shareholder and a season ticket holder, I think I and you and everyone listening not everyone listening, hello to our army of obsessed Celtic fans, but most people listening have a right to question it and say, is the strategy right? And, what is it they say about the road to hell being packed with good intentions? Good intentions aren't enough. We still need them to deliver on top of that as well. So it's not enough to give them a free pass. The fact that they care and they're trying doesn't mean that we just go, well, that's great then, we'll leave you to it. We are still allowed, and in fact I think we still have a duty to say, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about this? That's kind of our job with the conscience of the club. And again, it's like the referees earlier on. Sometimes the board might go, well, look, we stepped up and we're doing that, and look, we're grateful, but this is still sort of how the relationship is supposed to work. We hold you to account. And we're never not going to hold you to account. So you wanted the job, you've got it, we want you to do it brilliantly. And it works both ways. Do it badly and we'll criticise. Do it well, you'll be legends. So there's a reward there eventually. Henry Robertson, why do you think the club strategy and PR is so howlingly bad? Why do we continue to use who we use, and how should the club proceed? In regards to referees' performance, do you think the media team or someone else should put together footage of the upcoming official and the previous disgraceful efforts in the run-up to each match to put them in the correct mindset? It's probably not allowed officially, but still, yeah, it's not allowed officially. But if a fan wanted to do it. In terms of our PR, I don't understand. It's better now. We've seen things like the Stuart Robertson interview and the training interview that are better than it's been in the past. But yeah, I still think it needs to be more aggressive. I think it needs to be more direct. But I accept, and this has been said to me and it's valid, that I am very much scorched earth when it comes to the media, that I am kind of burn it down, None of this is, the whole thing is rotten, none of this is salvageable, so just go in the attack and take a flamethrower at everything. And there are other people who would say that that's the wrong approach and you need to try and get on, and the media is the media and we can't work outside it or pretend it doesn't exist. So there are loads of different opinions and ways of dealing with it. But for me, yes, I'd like us to be much more vociferous, much more direct and much more aggressive. I don't think that what we do has worked for us in the past. And the problem that we're dealing with is we're not dealing with the media who don't know they're unfair to us and need to be corrected. We're dealing with the media who know how they treat us and are quite happy with the status quo. And that's why, to me, it should always be a fight, because it is a fight. They hate us. They're trying to hold us down. And when that happens, you've got to fight back. You're not going to get there with nice behaviour. So I think that the time for trying to be reasonable is long since past. And I'd like us to be, as I said, damn sight more aggressive. Ian, should we prioritise Europa League qualification or stronger start to League and Cup next season? I mean, financially, yeah, Europa League qualification should absolutely be the priority. I get that. But as a fan, no. League for me this year, just boom, that's the key thing. But I get that, I'm going to be going, well, where's the money? Why aren't you signing people? And then the one route they've got to get serious money, I'm saying, don't worry about that. So it's a tricky one. I suppose the ideal thing is just Steven Gerrard goes, takes us into Europa League, wins us a treble, and then that sort of solves all the arguments, doesn't it? So there you go, Stevie, there's a target for next season. Some of the questions, repetitious. Yeah, Scott Skinner, you've regularly moved your seat over the years. Where is your favourite place to sit at Ibrox? I sit in the main stand currently, and I like that just because you get to go in through the main stand. But the best view in the place is Govan Rear halfway line, I have found. Graham Roy, is there an argument to change the Champions League back to the Champions only and then to increase the status of the Europa League by including a better standard as a team? I know that will never happen. Do you think we'll ever see Rangers getting into the later stages of the Champions League within the next 10 years? No, it never will happen. And hopefully, you can always dream, but it would take a lot in that time. But Ajax are proving this year, you get a fair win behind you, some good players, you never know. The problem that they have is the problem that we have, that team of theirs that is so exciting is going to be ripped apart in the summer, and success almost hurts when that happens. But the Champions League's never going to change now. They're getting it to what they want it to be, which is pretty close now to invite only. 20 of the places are assigned now to the top 5 leagues. They don't want clubs from countries like ours in it, and they're being as honest as I think they probably can be. So yeah, and I think that unfortunately that this is a party that we're just not getting an invite to. Ryan Lynch, only because this is the show that's broadcast to anyone on YouTube. Do you think other Scottish teams and any other fans with a brain regret demoting us down but won't admit it? Points to note: 1, their attendances went down. 2, Celtic have control of refs and media and unchallenged title win. On that note, it isn't only us that gets dodgy decisions against us when playing that mob, other teams do. 3, national team is a farce. When you demote one of its contributors and utilise a club team who are unchallenged at home but thumped in Europe, then the national team will obviously suffer. 4, the appeal of the Scottish game suffered hugely and still does. We've one of the biggest footballing names of the last 20 years as a manager. Sky, BBC, BT should be pissing themselves with delight and buddying up to us, as interviews with our manager could be sold and broadcast around the world. That's a fantastic question. I'm not sure that they do, because I think that too many bought into the boogeyman argument, and it's still too easy to just blame us. So, national team are rubbish, that's Rangers' fault. How? Well, you're not producing players. I bet you did that. So shut up, it's you. That's kind of the attitude of a lot of Scottish football fans. You've got a team in Scotland, they're going for their 8th league title in a row, and are utterly dominant, and as you say, have the SFA and the media and the referees in their back pocket. And yet, most teams get more upset about things happening in and around us. And that's weird. That wouldn't happen in any other league. If a team was that dominant, then they would be the team that people would focus on. Understandably, doesn't happen here. It's all about Rangers, and I think that so many people, you have to remember that a green light was given for them to hate us. It's socially acceptable. It's backslapping when it's announced that you do that, and therefore I think that people are just so ingrained in it. And then you have to remember as well that in Scotland a lot of it is to do with non-footballing reasons, such as politics, and it's a very divided country at the moment politically. And I think that for people who are in that sphere, it plays well to have a go at us. So I think that, that in their, shall we say, in their moments of clarity, they might step back and go, that maybe wasn't the best idea. But I think that for a lot of them, their hate trumps that. And yeah, we're a convenient blamehound for everything that's wrong, not just in football, but in this country. And Rangers fans are so convenient. It's all our fault. And we have to shut up and be punished. And I think that's one of the reasons why they really don't like us still, because we're kicking back. And they can't handle that. Next question comes from Kylo. And he says, not my question, but my dad's. What's your favourite Rangers top of all time? My dad favours the 1998, I think, home top with red, white and blue stripes at the shoulders. No, I think that's maybe the 96, 97 kit. That one, the Adidas one that you're maybe describing of. If it's got a big collar, then it's definitely that one. My favourite Rangers top of all time is the C.R. Smith one, and there are a lot of great ones, but the 85, 86, 86, 87 C.R. Smith top for me is a beauty. And Souness, Davy Cooper, Ali, yeah, that one for me. Some absolute belters since, of course. Love the Adidas kits, including the Gaza one, which at the time I wasn't too sure of, but now I absolutely love. I collect old kits. I've got dozens of them, and so yeah, I'm very into this. And if you have any really old kits, get in touch with me. Hit me up. I'm willing to buy. So yeah, top collector. So please send them in. Moving on. David Scott, with our prolonged disappointment with no silverware this season, if we can get things right on the part, manage to finally secure 55, I think that once you take a step back and realise what this will mean to so many people after suffering for so long, that this will eclipse every other piece of our silverware in our history, and I include Barcelona in that. Do you agree? Yes, I do, because no club in world football of our stature has had to go through what we went through. And I know people might point to Juventus, but it was a one-year relegation. They were coming straight up. They weren't particularly affected. No club has had to deal with the vilification and hatred that we've had to deal with, the innumerable obstacles put in our way in terms of coming back, the spivs being allowed free rein and then to get away unpunished by a judicial system that seems unable when it comes to Rangers or crimes involving against Rangers or Rangers fans to be able to process or retain evidence properly. That for us to come back and achieve what we've achieved, or what we hope to achieve rather, to achieve what we've achieved has been pretty good, but to get back to where we belong will be remarkable, because it's been stymied or attempted to be at every single turn, and it still is, and people still try to make sure. This is the worst thing that can happen to a lot of people in Scottish football, and not just Celtic. It's the worst thing, and it hangs over them like a sword of Damocles. And the problem is for them that one day it'll come, and they know it, and that's why they get hysterical. It'll actually be better for everyone once we've won a title and it's just out the way, because they'll be able to relax and just get on with their lives. But until it happens, there's this horrible Armageddon that they know is inevitable and they know awaits them, and it's coming their way. And all I can say is, you're fucking right, it's coming your way. And it's going to be far worse than you think it's going to be. Because I will tell you all right now that when we win this league, everything you fear about us, everything you dislike about us, we're going to ramp up to 11. We are going to be unfucking bearable when we win this title. So you better hope, if you're a Rangers hater, that it's held off for a while, but every year just increases the pressure, increases the volume. That when the bottle pops, it is going to spread all over the bits of this country that don't like us, and the bubbles will get in your eyes, let me assure you of that. Rangers fans are going to be unbelievable, and it's going to be fantastic. And if you like Rangers or just like a good sporting story, you're going to think it's fantastic. And if you hate Rangers or are a bigot, then get out of road, because we are coming. And when we do, man, we're going to blow a load like Superman. Fraser Monroe, between season ticket money, the unexpected European money and potential player sales, should we have a fairly healthy transfer budget this summer? Assuming we have north of 10 million plus any TAV Alfie money, will we see this reinvested? Yeah, I think so. I'd hope so. I think we'll probably end up spending around about... I mean, I'd be gutted if it was less than 50 million, but I thought it would be about 50 million in the summer, and I suppose when you add everything up, it probably touched that with loan fees, etc. But for me, I think we definitely need to go 50 million minimum, and then if we sell Alfie, then that changes it again, because you need to replace him. So Yeah, I would expect to see significant interest in the summer. Jock Wallace, what would you do if you came home to find Brian Laudrup in bed with your other half? And Adam Story replied, to take my gear off and jump in. I think I would just I'd just immediately go downstairs, pick up the strips that I mentioned that I collect that he wore and start getting him to sign them. And then I'll just leave them to it in peace, because I need to be too busy phoning my mates to come and see the jerseys. So yeah, Kai Lewis Cooper says, hi David, I put a message in a thread a few weeks ago saying that I felt if Alfie moved on, that would be the making of Stevie G's. He would have to find another way of playing, and you said that was a reasonable shout. Do you think the past couple of games without Alfie and him changing tactics, formation, shows that we are capable of playing a different way, and dare I say a better way indeed? On the surface, it's a ludicrous thing to say that losing your best player makes you a better team. But I think that the key is in the word team. That I think Rangers players, when Alfie's been there, have been guilty sometimes of abdicating responsibility when it's not going well. And it becomes, I'll just kick it in Alfie's direction and hopefully he'll make something happen. And to be fair to him, quite often he does. But I think that they've had to grab the responsibility more when he's not there. That doesn't always mean they've done it. And anyone who's saw certain matches that he hasn't played in will remember some absolutely insipid displays. So sometimes they've failed, but the last few matches they seem to have realised, look, we've got to change the way we play, we've got to do different things. So on the one hand, yes, I think that there is that potential. But then the other argument is but what happens if they don't grab it? They don't grab the responsibility. We've seen what happens. We lose or draw to teams that we should be putting away without any bother. So it's still very much 50-50 at the moment. But I think we all felt earlier on this season when Alfie was out, it was a crisis. And to be fair to the players, they played like that. But maybe we need to start seeing it as an opportunity as well. And for other players to come through and deliver more and get more headlines. I think the likes of Scott Arfield, you've seen that in the last few games. Chris, do you think anyone in the youth team could potentially nail down a regular first team place? If so who and in what positions? I know that people are very excited about guys like Josh McPake, Kai Kennedy, Stephen Kelly, Cammy Palmer. They're all very wee at the moment. That's the only thing. I think they're all, when you see them, they look like kids physically. And at the moment, I would worry about putting them into the first team because they all have the skill, but I think they need to develop physically a bit. But in terms of ability, there's a lot of them, that I think are on the cusp there. Mikey Anderson, Gaza or Alberts? I loved Alberts, but it's Gaza. A genuinely world-class player. So, Gaza for me. Scott Murphy, I saw a debate about this the other day. It was about the Iron Brew Cup, the Challenge Cup, the Petrol Station, Diddy Cup, whatever you want to call it, and debating the format. The part that got me interested was the bit about Colts teams, main point being that Motherwell aside, they all get put out reasonably early. Do you think teams could or should take it more seriously, or do you think it's just because of a lot of Premiership Colt players are on loan through the leagues that were only left with 16s and 18s? The other point made was that Colts don't bring great attention to the Cup. What can be done to raise the young team's profile among fans? Is it just that the Reserve League is played a Monday afternoon, mostly on training grounds with no spectators? Yeah, I think so. If they made it very cheap and at decent times, then I think you'd get bigger attendance. You're never going to get anywhere near what you get with the first team, right? Because that old joke about, well, I support two teams, Rangers and Rangers Reserves. Most football fans, they don't really care because we've been told for years that development teams, etc., reserves are there to help supply. It's a means to an end, to help supply players and improve players and get them fit for the first team. So there is that. But I mean, I've been at Rangers Celtic Old Firm reserve matches in the past that had 20,000 people at it. I think that there is an audience there. You could be, but make it reasonable. Make it a fiver. Don't be charging 15-20 quid for it. And obviously, if it's Rangers versus Queen of the South, those are the ones you play at the Hummel in the middle of the day. But yeah, I think there's an opportunity there. I don't see why not. RM, Alan McGregor's contract. Oh, sorry, your other point. I didn't answer, Scott. I do apologise. I think it's very much a part of what you said. I think people use it as a development thing, and I think that for these teams as well, they don't want to go out to Rangers under 18s essentially. They don't want to lose to a youth team, so there's that. I think they play that bit harder, and also it's the experience. I mean, our boys have got more ability than them, but they don't know the game the way these guys do. They don't know every shortcut and trick of the trade that an experienced guy who's got 300 senior games under his belt will know. So I think that plays a part as well, yeah. RM, Alan McGregor's contract is up at the end of next season. Do you think he will play on past 2020, or does time catch up with us all? The latter part, yes, time's undefeated, but I think that we'll need to see where he is then. If he's playing the way he is now, sure, why not? If he isn't, decision has to be made. G. Jaws McLeod, I agree with David on not wanting us to sign a target man and just revert to hoofball, but could Zach Rudden develop into a physical presence up front for us? 6'1" or thereabouts, doesn't seem to be fazed by the physicality of the game and looks like he's still got some filling out to do. Yeah, I think this boy's got a real chance, George. I like him because he is big for his age. He's got the frame. He's not just tall, he's got the frame. And I don't mean that in a Scottish way of he's got a big frame, which is a polite way of saying he likes a pie. I mean he's got that kind of big athlete, modern athlete frame, and he knows where the goal is. So I think there's an opportunity here. I'm excited about that kid. I hope he goes on and does something. He does something right. Robin Weems, are you guys as worried about myself about guys we have been linked with, such as Jones, Stewart, Hasty and Shinnie? Not impressed by any of them and really do not want them even as squad players. I think you've been harsh there. They would do it as squad players. We're not going to get in 11 superstars, so you need to then pick up the best of the rest. So I'd be gutted if it was that level of player was all we got, but as squad player, fine, and not too many of them. We need guys that we don't groan when they're in the side, but I think a couple of them could do a job, but no more than that. Steve Clark, are there people employed at Rangers who are subscribers to Heart and Hand, and what kind of feedback do you get from them? Yes, there are, and generally very positive, which is nice. Graham, if Dave King was willing to hear you out, what message would you drive at? Let me do the tannoy before an Old Firm game. Just one. I mean, they couldn't let me do it again after it, but by God, what an afternoon we'd have, lads. Oh, and lassies, you would love it. Right up until I got huckled. It would be amazing. Chris Jacomine, realistically, how much money do you have to spend somewhat to replace Alfie, and how much extra will it take to make a serious challenge? Do we have change left from the Alfredo fee that will come in? And sub-question, is Derek McInnes as big a shitebag as Jerry Adams when he was cowering in fright? McInnes is an odd one. I just think McInnes is content with what he has and where he is and the level he's at. I don't think he's got any drive to go on and push to the next level. I think he's demonstrated that several times, not just with us. If you look at Jack Ross having the balls to go to Sunderland and try something, McInnes doesn't have that. He's comfy. He's found his level. You've got a guy who said after a cup final defeat, well, I'm just happy we reached another cup final. It's pointless. A winner gets that you could get in the third round of the final, it doesn't matter. So, yeah. And I think we've dealt with the money question. Neil Atkinson, what are the 3 things you've learned about the club, the game in Scotland, or even your own relationship with Rangers throughout the journey of admin till now? The game in Scotland is riddled. It's in a self-imposed straitjacket made of hatred. There you go, there's another Ponzi phrase. That it feels comfortable with blame rather than solutions, and it revels in things that then hold it back from achieving anything at a decent level. It's also too fragmented, and too many people in positions of power survive due to the tactics of divide and conquer, and that's why it won't change. And much as I hate to say it, Scottish football will not change in the significant future, in the foreseeable future rather. It won't change significantly. And yeah, listen, we've been having these debates for 20 years. Scottish football is what it is. There's no desire really for people. They'll moan about when Scotland get humped or teams go to Europe, but realistically they use it for their own ends and they don't really care. What have I learned about the club? That the one thing that never changes, and therefore the most important thing at Rangers, are the fans. And I think that we had been brainwashed into forgetting that. over the years. I think very deliberately. We became supplicants, and it was almost feudal to the Lord in the big house, and we became grateful for him allowing us the pleasure of following our club rather than understanding that it's us who make this thing special. And I think that that's been rediscovered, and that fills me with joy. And my own relationship with the club, I found that it's stronger than probably any relationship in my life, with the exception of my mother and father. I think that I joked in the past about wives come and go, but wives have came and went. And Rangers is there forever. So I think that I've learned that to me it's as immutable a thing as waking up in the morning and automatically breathing. And I think until I don't do the latter, the former will always be the case. And our last question comes from Harry McRandall. Harry says, David, can a sensible argument now be made for a fan's rep to sit on the board of directors given that Club 1872 now holds a sizable chunk of the shares? Yes, I believe that's the case. And I think that it's important for the board to remember that they see things differently to us. And I know that they're fans, I get that. But when you're close to something, you don't always get the amount of vision that you get when you're a wee bit further away. And I think it's important for them to do more than pay lip service to how important the fans are. The fans are our football club. It's as simple as that. The fans are the guys who will keep our club big. The only thing really at times the last 8 years that did. It's people like us who every day live with us when Rangers aren't where they should be. Every day face the barbs and the abuse and the comments and even just, when we're alone, just the kind of gap where success in our football club should be. And I think that it's important for them to make sure that they're aware of that. It's difficult when we meet guys in high positions at the club not to be a little bit in awe because of what they represent to us. It's not them as individuals, it's who has gone before them, it's who we've watched, it's our dreams. And I think it's important to then have a business relationship with a fans group or a fan to make them realise, look, this is vital. And if you think that we're moaning at you for the sake of it, we're not. If you think that we're complaining to you just to have something to say, we're not. We do this because we love this, because it's our lives, because it matters so much. And I don't think it would do any harm for the board to be aware of that. And as I say, to do more than words and to show it. And that to me would be an easy, demonstrable way of saying, look what we've done. I don't know if they'll do it. I don't think they will. For me, it's such an easy thing to do. And it's such a straightforward thing to do. And I know that the board will say, but you can present reasons not to do anything forever. At the end of the day, if they want to do it, they'll do it. If they don't, they won't. And the longer they don't do it, to me, it proves the more that they don't. But I think that the board need to realise that the continued existence of this football club is due to them, yeah, but mainly to us, because we refused to give in. And I think that has to be recognised and cherished and held at the centre of everything that we do moving forward. Okay then folks, that will all but do me today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much to everyone who sent the questions. And next time, if you want to send the questions, make sure that you're over on the Heart and Hand Patreon site. Like I say, just $1.99 per month. If you want to support us in another way though, and just keep listening to free shows, we've introduced a brand new range of tat on our Tat Emporium over at the Heart and Hand website, which is just heartandhand.co.uk, which you should go to anyway because there's loads of good stuff to read on it. But we also have introduced some fantastic new things. So water bottles, I mentioned the gym earlier, show how staunch you are with a nice Heart and Hand water bottle, and also one of them travelling coffee mug things that I know are quite popular among cool people on trains and shit. So, rather than getting one with like Game of Thrones on it, they make enough money. Pay for us. So go to heartland.co.uk. Thank you very much then for listening to me today. Just time to thank our executive producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Mr. Paul Miles. I will talk to you again on Thursday when we'll be looking ahead to, yes, the weekend when our boys are back. Until then, have a fabulous week and I will talk to you then. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.